Hey everybody, welcome back to Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm Grace Remington with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, and we have a ton of updates for you because we're coming off the first big recruiting weekend since the end of the recruiting dead period. So we're going to start with LSU landing one of its top targets in four-star linebacker Kolaj Cobbins. That moved the Tigers class up to second nationally in 2024. And then Steve, after that, they landed a commitment from defensive lineman Ahmad Bro. So what can you tell us about these two new additions?
Well, like we talked about last week on Whiparound, Grace, LSU, they're really emphasizing recruiting in this 8-hour radius. And particularly, they want to own the state. Brian Kelly and this now second-year staff have sometimes taken some heat for their prowess in the state. Last year's class just worked out that they were in on so many national targets and put together what I think is a championship caliber class, highlighted by what they did on the offensive line. But here we are in 2024, and they're starting to land a lot of their top targets in state. Nobody higher on the board than Kolaj Cobbins, out of state champion Destrehan. That program's been a feeder for the Tigers for many years. Guys like Justin Jefferson have come to Death Valley and been fantastic for them. And Kolaj Cobbins is a 6'3", 200-pound second-level defender that's going to kind of play that jack position that they envision in the role BJ Ojulari type. But in addition to just his talent, he's an explosive pass rusher type that explodes to the football, quick, a rangy player with change of direction ability, and then just physicality when he arrives to the ball, but also just a special personality, a guy that has all the leadership traits that this staff is looking for. And speaking of leadership traits, Ahmad Bro at one point committed to Duke, the Fighting Mike Elkos. He'll now play at LSU, visited the Tigers over the weekend, blew away the staff with just his personality and who he is as a young man. But obviously, they're excited. Matt House and Brian Kelly are excited to add his length and motor, relentless effort that he plays with, high football IQ to their program as well. And this is a guy that was on the verge of landing several other major offers. So LSU nailing that down and adding those two to a class that ranks number 2 nationally.
Right. 4 of the 10 commits in LSU's class are in state. So progress in that 8-hour radius. But Steve, that wasn't the only commit or possible commit to come out of the weekend. You have a crystal ball to LSU.
Yeah, LSU's in good shape for a lot of prospects that visited this weekend, so maybe more 24/7 Sports crystal balls to come. But one that I threw a forecast in for on Saturday morning was Jelani Watkins, a dynamic receiver out of Houston, Texas, Klein Forest. He's in our top 100, number 15 receiver in the country, number 90 player nationally, approaching 30 offers. I think LSU and Texas A&M are two programs that are in fantastic shape for him. But he also landed an offer, Grace, over the weekend from LSU's track program. I think that's very exciting for him to come to Baton Rouge and do both sports. He had taken a football visit in the past, and LSU, Cortez Hankton and company have done a fabulous job recruiting him and are certainly at the very least near the top of the list for Jelani Watkins. Some other guys that were on campus this weekend that I know had really good visits. You have top 247 defensive lineman Justin Green out of the Peach State there. He had a fantastic visit, being recruited by all the SEC powerhouse programs, but LSU certainly in the middle of that one moving forward. A couple Lone Star State offensive linemen, Casey Poe and Blake Frazier, they had great weekends. I probably would say that until someone tells me different, I like Michigan's position for the legacy recruit Blake Frazier, but LSU certainly moving the needle and giving him a lot to think about over the weekend. Peyton Pierce is a linebacker that seems like any visit he comes out of, the place he just visited is one that he has great excitement for. But his former high school teammate Kyle Parker is enrolled early there. They got a chance to hang out with, and there's a lot of anticipation that Peyton Pierce will come back to LSU down the road. And speaking of Texas linebackers, Devon Keys out of powerhouse Alito High, he's another one that I think LSU's at the top or near the top of the list for. The biggest prospect on campus, perhaps, Grace, though, is our number one quarterback, 24/7 Sports number one quarterback in the 2025 class, Bryce Underwood, a two-time state champ out of Belleville, Michigan. He was down in Death Valley for the first time, a visit that has been anticipated for over a year now. Coach Joe Sloan and company planned a heck of a visit where his dad told me that LSU feels like a second home to them. I asked what they did. He's like, what did we not do? They spent so much time down there. They even attended a class, and I got a chance to talk with a professor down there, but certainly spent time with the quarterbacks, got to watch spring practice, got some time around Brian Kelly, and they just love the people within that LSU football building. They've started to get extremely close with Joe Sloan, and I know it's early in Bryce Underwood's process, and he's going to go visit Ohio State for spring practice, and Ohio State's done a really good job. But I think that LSU blew this visit out of the water, and if I had to put an early pulse on it, I like where LSU's positioned. Had a really good visit to Penn State in January. Michigan and Michigan State have gotten several game visits, but Bryce Underwood really loves LSU right now. His family really loves LSU right now. I don't think this will be the first time that he's on campus. And this is a guy that LSU, the amount of time they invested into that visit, the detail-oriented approach, all the stuff he did, all the meetings he was in. They talked nutrition. They talked strength training. They showed all their cards on this visit, and they really just felt like they fit in with the people at LSU.
All right, Nick Saban and his new look coaching staff welcomed a loaded group of recruits to T-Town for Junior Day over the weekend. Obviously, a lot of prospects in the 24 class, but the youngest on campus was from the 2026 class. So, Steve, why don't you give us a recap of the weekend?
Yeah, Alabama. This is one where they kind of recruit a little different than other programs. They get kids to prospects or get kids prospects to campus to feel them out, get to know them, see how they're wired, see if they are guys that can legitimately play the level of football that they're accustomed to play at Alabama, because it is more than just being talented at Alabama, but you got to be wired right for what that program is. And I think that a lot of the guys that I talk to come out of this visit, they are extremely excited about Alabama and look forward to seeing where this relationship goes moving forward. It's almost like, well, Alabama picked them, Grace, because so many guys came out of this visit. They loved it. Jalen Mbakwe is a 5-star that's already committed to Alabama. He said it felt like home as always. He got a chance to spend time with new coach Kevin Steele and enjoyed that. But there were a lot of guys with offers on campus that were down for the first or second times. Ryan Wingo is a 5-star receiver from St. Louis. It was him and his family's first time. And we've talked about him a lot on Whiparound because he's at all the big visit weekends. He's at all the big games on Saturdays and all the big weekend visits that teams had in January. But this was their first time at Alabama. And his dad said, look, Alabama, it's a totally different place. And the son, he loved connecting with the players and bonding with the coaches, and says what fires me up is that they're still building. I can maybe be part of that. Nick Saban trying to build back up for a national championship, and Ryan Wingo felt that. But in-state edge rusher Jordan Ross, he's a guy that pointed to how some of the Alabama players talked about how that program has changed their lives for the better. And that really fires him up about a potential future at Alabama. And Alabama really does a great job of getting their players involved at these junior days, because it's not easy to be an Alabama football player, but these players are so vested in it and take great pride in it. And it resonates with guys like Jeremiah Beeman, who was there and thought that it was awesome talking to some of their big time players and getting around the other recruits and seeing who he could potentially be playing with at a place like that. Styles Prescott's a 4-star offensive lineman from my neck of the woods. He talked about Alabama breeding championships and NFL caliber talent, and that Coach Saban is about his business, and so is the rest of the staff. That resonated with him. Jaden Riddell is arguably the most recruited and coveted tight end in the country, over 1,000 yards receiving out of the state of Missouri. He's on an SEC swing, but Alabama certainly continues to resonate with him. He loves his connection with the coaches, Coach Cox and Coach Roach, and said it was one of his best visits yet to date as they battled Tennessee, Ohio State, and many others. Caleb Odom's another talented, highly recruited tight end from the Peach State that said it was an amazing place. And Coach Saban emphasizing the importance of development. A lot of these guys have talked about, hey, they're excited to get back up there. Amari Jefferson, another a coveted receiver who's committed to Tennessee for baseball, that was offered by Alabama on his visit. So Alabama certainly made a mark on guys like Marquise Lightfoot, a pass rusher from Chicagoland, Dominic McKinley, a defensive lineman from New Orleans, and then some of these 2025s like quarterback Antoine Hill, who Tommy Rees offered in person and said it was a great experience. He's one of the most coveted quarterbacks early in the 2025 class. He talked about Alabama's culture and enjoyed talking ball with Rees. And Jamie French is a 5-star receiver that says Alabama's high on his list, no doubt about it. So Alabama ripping and roaring, had a lot of big names on campus, and you can read more about that from Hank South and company, Tim Watts on Bama Online.
All right, let's talk about Miami and the rebuild they're doing down there. The only commit in the 24 class so far is a kicker. So Mario Cristobal obviously trying to add to that. They just opened spring practice this weekend. Perfect opportunity to host a bunch of linemen recruits on campus, give them a glimpse into life, what it would look like in Coral Gables. So what did you hear from the big guys up front?
Oh, man. Everybody that was at Miami loved seeing that practice and seeing that energy and enthusiasm that the coaches coached with and the players played with. There's probably not a team in the country more excited to get spring football going than Miami, who underachieved. It was a tough first year for this staff that's accustomed to winning 5-7. So to get out there, fresh slate, spring football, that enthusiasm and energy resonated with recruits like Brandon Baker, the #1 offensive tackle in the country. Gabby Urrutia, our insider from Inside the U, talked to Baker, and Baker's talked about Miami's focus on the offensive line and how that excites him. I know talking to some sources that spent time with some of the other guys from out west, Aiden Breland, linebacker Kingston Viamu Asa, defensive lineman T.A. Cunningham. I think Miami is put themselves in position for an official visit from all those guys. They're going to be contenders for those players from the West Coast. And this was a weekend where Miami laid a good foundation with a lot of guys that they're recruiting. And if you read my story from the weekend and a lot of Gabby's coverage, it's a lot of trench warfare that they're looking for. Nair Daniels is a guy that they really like from New Jersey, who I caught up with, who had a fabulous visit and is super high. And they had a lot of coveted guys up front on campus, guys like Juan Minaya from Paramus Catholic, an offensive tackle who, with a Hispanic background, loves the diversity around Miami and that football program. Riley Sunrum from North Dakota is a lineman that enjoyed his time around Alex Maribel and loves the way he interacts and coaches his players. And again, the emphasis that Coach Cristobal puts on O-line and working on the drills with the O-linemen in practice. Wyatt Gilmore from Minnesota is an edge rusher that this program covets early on in the cycle. He was an important name on campus for Miami. Kendall Jackson and Dalen Russell are a couple in-state defensive linemen that are very disruptive, make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage that Miami is certainly high on in the mix for. Dalen Russell was the Miami Herald's Defensive Player of the Year, to give you an idea of just the kind of year he had as a junior. So I think Miami has put themselves in the mix for return visits and beyond for a lot of top targets at the point of attack. And then in the 2025 class, you had Lose Epinesa from Illinois, Edwardsville High. He's a 24/7 Sports Composite 5-star. His older brother, AJ Epinesa, played at Iowa and now plays for the Buffalo Bills. His older sister played volleyball at Purdue. Dad played football at Iowa. Mom went to Iowa. But Miami, they're in the mix here. He's been to Miami twice now. They have a great relationship with Joe Salavea. Joe Salavea is like Epinesa's dad's little brother. They call him Uncle. And so Miami has them in the middle of that recruitment. It doesn't hurt that his brother trains in South Florida and his sister lives in South Florida. So he would have a nice foundation there if he ultimately chose Miami. But the Hurricanes in on a lot of guys from the weekend, from Micaiah Danzy to Chris Wheatley, Humphreys, so many names that were in town in Miami. It's going to be another top 10 class for the Hurricanes.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a recruiting show if we didn't talk about the top prospect in the country, Five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola continuing to make the rounds. This weekend, he was at USC, where he understandably is interested in working with Coach Lincoln Riley. So what are you hearing about his trip?
Yeah, well, he had a blast at USC. Talked to him afterwards. He said, every time I go back, I just love it more and more. And he was last there in January. That was his mom's first time seeing it in January. And like we've mentioned on Whiparound and on the recruiting show, he trains at 3D quarterback there in the Los Angeles area. So he's going to be around a lot of weekends, and he's going to spend a lot of time popping in at USC's campus. This time he got to see a spring practice, got to talk with Lincoln Riley, but also got a chance to talk to Caleb Williams and pick his brain on how Caleb Williams likes USC and how he's handled everything, how the Heisman Trophy winner has handled his time there in Los Angeles. And he called Caleb Williams a great guy and loves how he leads his team. And so Lincoln Riley, it's well documented how much he loves Lincoln Riley and the way he goes about his business, saying it's first class. And of course, Coach Riley's track record speaks to Dylan Raiola right now, where if you're his starting quarterback, you're darn near guaranteed to win the Heisman and darn near guaranteed to be a first round draft pick. So I think those odds are favorable as Dylan Raiola considers his top programs. And talking to him and talking to family throughout the process, I get the sense that USC is the one to beat. And so I go to log into 24/7 Sports about an hour or so after my interview with Dylan Raiola. I saw our good friend, our good colleague Blair Angulo had logged the 24/7 Sports crystal ball in favor of USC as well. And I know a lot of indication for a lot of indicators around Raiola in that Arizona area, in that Phoenix area, is that USC is the team to beat. So between his intel and the intel I'm gathering from Raiola, the Raiola camp, we just love where USC stands for him right now. Now, Georgia's still working to get him on campus this spring. They want to get back to Athens. They have that Nebraska return at the end of March locked in, and certainly there's a lot of favorable things about both those programs that he likes. He's talking to Mike Bobo regularly every day. Coach Kirby Smart has made an impression, and certainly that program is one that he views as very special, getting a chance to play with the best players in the country. And then Nebraska, of course, he went there at the end of January and had a fantastic time with his uncle, who's the offensive line coach, for a boys trip. They saw a basketball game. The students serenaded his name. He's built a strong relationship with Matt Rule and Coach Satterfield and that staff. He knows what a priority he is at his dad's alma mater, and the excitement and the fan support that program has. And Matt Rule's track record of rebuilding programs has the Huskers in the middle of it. But right now, the intel says that USC is the program to beat for Dylan Raiola, and my 24/7 Sports crystal ball reflects that, coming in a couple minutes after our boy Blair Angulo.
All right, exciting stuff. Well, let's talk about the number 2 prospect in the country, 5-star Buford athlete KJ Bolden. He has a busy month of March coming up with 3 school visits. He's coming off a trip to Fayetteville. So what's the latest with him?
I think he was blown away by his time at Arkansas over the weekend. He loved his first ever experience at Arkansas, said it was nothing but amazing. He said he enjoyed everything Arkansas has to offer, and his time with Coach Pittman, Coach Woodson, Travis Williams, and several others, the current players from Atlanta. Feels like he's a lot of really good relationships at Arkansas, and said he's looking forward to his next visit. Said it's a great culture, and he could tell from the moment he arrived the love that the coaches and players have for each other in the building. And he called the fans amazing. And so he sees the support that program has. Arkansas had a top 25 recruiting class last cycle. And when you bring in guys like Coach Woodson and Coach Travis Williams, you're going to be in the middle of some blue blood, blue chip recruiting battles. And here's one where Arkansas has taken a swing here alongside the likes of Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida State, some of the other schools. He's going to go to Auburn and Florida State later in the month, and they'll try and make a move. But sounds like he wants to get back to Arkansas following this visit, and his relationship with Marcus Woodson is a big reason why.
And we'll continue down the line here, Steve, with the number 3 prospect in the country, 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri, coming off a trip to Oklahoma. What about the Sooners has impressed him?
Well, he's been there 4 or 5 times, and I think that Oklahoma is an excellent position. They're coming off the number 4 recruiting class in the country last year, and I'm not sure there's a prospect in the country they covet more. here in 2024 than Williams Nwaneri out of Lee Summit, Missouri, and his relationships with Coach Bates and Coach Chavis, that's a big part. He got a chance to get some one-on-one time with Coach Venables. He likes the direction of the program and feels good about the player development that he would get playing for such an experienced coaching staff. He talked about how wired Coach Venables is, and the Soul Mission program is also a big thing that Oklahoma has going in its favor here. So there's obviously no question that the Sooners are on the short list for Williams Nwaneri as he continues his process. He's been to Oregon a couple times. I know he's high on the Ducks. He's obviously been to Mizzou a ton. Missouri and Oklahoma are probably the places he's been the most. Tennessee made a big impression in January. This weekend, he's going to go down to LSU. That'll be his first time in Baton Rouge. The Tigers are also his latest offer. He's going to go to Georgia the third weekend of this month, and he's trying to get to Texas A&M at the end of the month, and Colorado is already locked in for the spring game. So Oklahoma has a lot of competition here for Williams Nwaneri, but they may be the bar as this thing continues.
All right, let's go back up north where PJ Fleck is rowing the boat. Minnesota picking up commitments from 2 top targets this weekend. The Gophers class now has 5 commits, ranking 7th in the Big Ten. And Steve, I thought it was really cool to read the comments from these guys, Aaron Philo and Simon Seidel. They seem really passionate about the program, so excited about this opportunity that they are saying their recruitments are officially closed. Of course, anything can happen, but it seems rare to see some guys so passionate at this point in the cycle. So what are you hearing about these two?
And it's also rare to see Minnesota lose a commitment. I mean, it's a program that's culture is unique to Coach Fleck and company up there. And so when guys buy in, they know exactly what they're buying into. I mean, you remember Rashad Bateman getting that Minnesota tattoo on his arm. And a lot of SEC programs tried to flip Rashad Bateman, but he was all Gophers, and the rest is history. And they're back in the Peach State. Aaron Philo, who's the leading passer in the state the last 2 years, thrown over 9,000 yards over his last 2 high school football seasons that have ended in championships there for Prince Avenue Christian School. And Philo is a guy that first, his leadership, his personality, those are things that I think really stood out to Coach Fleck and company. He's obviously played a lot of football and played in a lot of big games, but you turn on his film, he's a very accurate passer. He can make all the throws in that offense. They do everything from bubbles to verticals to comebacks to corners and digs and curls, and he's on the money, throws with anticipation, sees the field well, and is a heck of a field general for one of the Peach State's top high school football programs, a guy that completes over 73% of his passes. He's a guy that in what is a down quarterback year nationally, for Minnesota to go and sneak this guy out of SEC country and add him, I think he's someone that can maintain the standard there at Minnesota as a program that's starting to turn into a consistent 10-game winner for PJ Fleck and company. And then they also added Simon Seidel to the program, and he's a guy that's also was a standout hockey player. That at one point was his primary sport. So physical, tough kid, a quick, explosive guy. He's got some serious athleticism to him. I love the way how fluid of an athlete he is. He's going to play corner at Minnesota. I know they really covet his length up there. This is a young man where football hasn't even been his primary sport yet. So there's a lot of upside, a lot of developmental upside with him. And so Minnesota adding both these young men to a class that ranks number 23 nationally at this point in the cycle.
All right, well, if Rashad Bateman has Minnesota tatted on his arm, I think the tat Steve has is all the recruiting info that's tatted on his brain. So we will put that to the test right now. It is time.
Sometimes a little less.
It is time for Stump Steve. And in case you guys have missed this the last 2 weeks, here's how it works. We're giving Steve the info on top 247 players from the last 10 cycles. We are going way back now because we got to make this more difficult. And we're going to see if Steve remembers where they went to school. So I hope you're ready, Steve, because you're getting what you wish for. We're going back to class of 2013, starting with Chris Jones. There he is. 5-star edge from Houston, Mississippi. Steve, where did he commit?
Mississippi State.
Oh my gosh. This is too easy.
I mean, he's one of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah, no, that one, he's well known. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got to go find people more obscure. Yeah, second round pick in the 2016 draft by the Chiefs, now a two-time Super Bowl champion. So that was a good projection by 24/7 Sports there. Okay, let's go to the class of 15 now with George Campbell, 4-star wide receiver from Tarpon Springs, Florida.
He went to Florida State.
Nice. No hesitation. All right. I don't know. You can probably see the screen. Without looking, do you know where he transferred?
I probably would have forgot that he transferred to West Virginia and played for the Hawks.
XFL is awesome. I will be keeping an eye out for him now. He's got
What's
AJ McCarron.
What's your purse at right now on XFL gambling?
I think I'm like 5-1.
So you're plus what? I mean, I'm not asking your record. I'm asking your
I gotta. Yeah, I'm up a few units for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, no. When these new leagues come out, that's when you got to jump on them, when the books have the least amount of information possible. All right, let's continue gambling on your knowledge. Class of 2016, Trey Lamar, 4-star linebacker from Roswell, Georgia.
Oh man.
All right,
Auburn.
this is good. Ooh, we got a wrong one. We'll give you a second chance. Kind of similar area.
I took a stab at it. Georgia Tech.
No, he went to Clemson. Played 3 seasons for the Tigers. His final stat line, 146 tackles, 8 sacks, an INT, and a forced fumble. So put together a nice little career there.
Well, producer Jason guaranteed I would not go 3 for 3, and he is laughing in the producer room.
Finally gotcha. 2-1, still a winning record. All right, and we'll come back and do it again next week. That's going to be a wrap for us, everybody. We will be back on Friday, back to our regularly scheduled programming now that the recruiting regular schedule is back. So send in your mailbag questions because we will be taking those once again. You can tweet those at us at 24/7 Sports. But until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.